Hello friends, welcome back to another episode by Engineering Today, and hope you're all having a good time with your family and friends. We have 3 updates for you today. Let's start with Starship. During the most recent round of testing, a SpaceX Super Heavy booster experienced a significant explosion and numerous fires at the launch pad. On July 11th, the upgraded Super Heavy, also known as Booster 7 or B7, suffered the explosion, but the details won't be known for sure until the rocket has been completely drained of all cryogenic propellant and potentially flammable gas and is safe for SpaceX personnel to approach. The incident started at approximately 4:20 p.m. Central Daylight Time when Super Heavy Booster 7 unintentionally ignited a cloud of flammable gas produced during flow testing involving most or all of its 33 Raptor engine prototypes, flowing high-pressure gas through the engine's turbines to get them up and running. A well-mixed cloud of methane and oxygen gas that resulted from this process behaved like a miniature fuel-air bomb when accidentally ignited, swiftly combusting to create an explosive explosion and shockwave. A fireball that momentarily reached a height of 80 to 90 meters, that's 260 to 300 feet, was created after the initial explosion as the fire spread to burn as much of the resultant gas as it could. Elon Musk initially claimed that the explosion and fire were planned, but thoughts on the contrary were generally held by almost every viewer who'd witnessed the testing. SpaceX is obligated to publish written safety warnings well before Starship testing that could produce a shockwave capable of shattering glass and hurting locals in order to protect the safety of the few remaining locals living at Boca Chica Village. It's almost certain that no ignition event was planned because SpaceX has never purposely conducted such a test without issuing those warnings and did not do so prior to July 11th. A few hours later, Musk changed the tweet he had originally sent and deleted, stating that the explosion had been actually not good and that SpaceX was assessing the damage. Musk further tweeted, "Cryogenic fuel is an added challenge, as it evaporates to create fuel-air explosion risk in a partially oxygen atmosphere like Earth. That said, we have a lot of sensors to detect this, more later." Overall, Booster 7 and the Starbase orbital launch site exceeded viewers' expectations of their durability, behaving extremely nominally in the face of an unanticipated explosion, shockwave, and fire. B7 appeared to keep those vents open and promptly depressurized its fuel tanks following the incident, decreasing the likelihood that the booster might self-destruct if SpaceX lost control. Additionally, SpaceX appeared to deliberately avoid using the umbilical mechanism of the orbital launch mount to drain the Super Heavy tanks of propellant, possibly out of worry that the shockwave might have compromised B7's connection. In the worst-case scenario, Super Heavy's engine compartment and 33 Raptor engines may have suffered considerable damage, and the accompanying pad fire or fires could have significantly damaged vital pad systems, necessitating weeks of repair. In such cases, the booster is beyond saving. In a more upbeat vein, Booster 7 might be all right after some checks and minor modifications, given that SpaceX appears to have been fortunate enough to prevent a total loss of the rocket. Whatever the reason for the explosion, SpaceX needs to determine what exactly went wrong and take precautions to prevent a recurrence of that failure pattern. However, the corporation has just finished stacking Super Heavy Booster 7 and has mounted Starship 24 on a nearby suborbital test stand, making it ready to start a static fire test campaign in the near future. Now let's take a closer look at the progress of the KPLO mission to be launched by SpaceX soon. Recently, South Korea's Korea Aerospace Research Institute has announced that they've completed assembling a Korean Pathfinder lunar orbiter, or rather known as Danuri, and they've also delivered it on way to SpaceX facilities for an upcoming launch in August. Danuri was scheduled to go through final launch preparations as soon as it arrived at SpaceX's Florida base. Some sources from Korea's Research Institute stated that the deliveries were carried out in early May, so after almost 2 months' time in July, it's plausible that SpaceX teams must have completed most of their inspections and checkouts after arrival. It's also expected that by the present time, SpaceX engineers might also have completed fueling of spacecraft, as well as encapsulated the KPLO spacecraft inside Falcon 9 payload fairings. If SpaceX launch preparations for this Korean lunar orbiter paces well on time, then they could easily go for launch as early as the 2nd of August at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. According to reports, Danuri, or KPLO, is the very first extraterrestrial mission of South Korea, and the spacecraft was mostly made by them. Report says that if the KPLO mission becomes successful, then South Korea will become the 7th country to reach lunar orbit. Sources state that KPLO will become SpaceX's second commercial launch to the moon. This mission will also mark SpaceX's first launch of Falcon 9 that will directly deliver a payload to a lunar trajectory. The Korean Pathfinder lunar orbiter is relatively simple and small and is expected to weigh only about 680 kilograms, much of which comprises the weight of fuel. The spacecraft will carry 6 main instruments. Out of those, 5 instruments were developed by South Korea. Those instruments were Lunar Terrain Imager, Wide-Angle Polarimetric Camera, KPLO Magnetometer, KPLO Gamma Ray Spectrometer, and Delay-Tolerant Networking Experiment. NASA has also partnered with South Korea to assist them in mission design, navigation, and communications. The last instrument, which is a shadow cam, is developed by NASA. It will map the reflectance within the permanently shadowed regions to search for evidence of water ice deposits in the moon. NASA stated that in this mission, SpaceX's Falcon 9 will launch KPLO into a low Earth parking orbit of around 300 kilometers. Then the second stage of Falcon 9 will carry out a trans-lunar injection burn to place the spacecraft on a ballistic lunar transfer. KPLO will then execute any necessary trajectory corrections immediately after separation. By the end of 2022, KPLO will eventually insert itself into orbit around the moon. In the last stage, the spacecraft will adjust into a circular 100-kilometer polar orbit around the moon and initiate operations from there. While South Korea has contracted SpaceX to launch their first lunar mission, this KPLO Pathfinder orbiter is meant to pave the way for their second orbiter and domestic moonlander. And as per reports, both of them will be launched on South Korea's own indigenous Nuri rocket. In our next update, we'll discuss SpaceX's new connectivity service for ocean-going vessels, Starlink Maritime. Starlink Maritime, as far as the name goes, it seems that it's some sort of new Starlink service for use at sea. And on the 8th of July, SpaceX announced that they've brought this new Starlink product to the satellite internet market. As per reports, Starlink Maritime will provide ocean-going vessels with up to 350 megabits download speed while at sea. Some sources state that other than ships and boats, Starlink Maritime will prove beneficial for merchant vessels, oil rigs, and in luxurious yachts. Starlink for boats, wrote Musk on Twitter after the announcement. According to reports, the cost of Starlink Maritime includes a monthly payment of about $5,000. Moreover, the users will also have to pay a one-time hardware cost of $10,000. This hardware will comprise of 2 high-performance terminals. Regarding the price of Starlink Maritime, a news channel named Whole Mars Catalog wrote to Musk, "I love that Starlink Maritime is the exact thing as residential Starlink, but on a boat, but price is 50 times higher. Smart vertical specific pricing," at Elon Musk. Musk replied that, "No, it's dual high-performance terminals, which are important for maintaining the connection in choppy seas and heavy storms. Still, obvious premium pricing, but way cheaper and faster than alternatives. SpaceX was paying $150,000 a month for a much worse connection to our ships." Musk also gave further reasons for the high price of Starlink Maritime. He said, "Also being ruggedized for relentless salt spray and extreme winds and storms in deep oceans is not easy." SpaceX's website stated that Starlink Maritime allows you to connect from the most remote waters across the world. just like you would in the office or at home. In addition to withstand extreme cold, heat, hail, sleet, heavy rain, and gale force winds, Starlink also holds up against rocket engines. Sources state that users will be able to monitor and manage their Starlink fleet from a single portal, and installation is designed with minimal above-deck space in mind. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this. Hit the like button if you find the video interesting, and kindly provide your valuable feedback in the comment section. This will help us to improve.